And we are back. Technical issues are still getting in the way, but we'll try and get the player cameras fixed as we go along. For now, Alex, over to you for the games while I try and get the cameras fixed.
Yeah, so this first game we see opperwezen, by the way, with the white pieces. He is a very, very aggressive player. Alireza, also a very aggressive player, and we're seeing a sort of a Sicilian pawn structure here. The black king is on e8, Alireza's king, but he shouldn't be too worried about that because there aren't too many lines of attack for now. So.
Okay, so we have Alireza.
Yeah, sorry by the way, if I stop commentary, it's because at that moment in time the board freezes on our end, so apologies, but it should be fixed very, very soon. In this position, I like Alireza's position. He goes for a very bold sacrifice, however, of an exchange. He was feeling the pressure and queen b5 check. I'm not so sure that I like the position any longer. On the other hand, the rook on f1 finds it very, very difficult to enter. The f file is simply unavailable. And black actually, well, at the moment he's got only one pawn for the exchange, but that pawn is in the center. His king is in good shape. I think overall it's probably something very close to equal, but the question is, how will the time scramble evolve? For now we're seeing a really big time edge here, 16 seconds against 11, but Alireza, incredibly fast player, and we see a draw. That's a little bit, I mean, it was objectively a draw, but it's interesting. Opperwezen does not try to flag with the time advantage. Makes you wonder, will Alireza, if he has a time advantage, be a little bit more merciless attempting to flag those situations? So in this game here, again, the action extremely fast. Bishop to a8 in order to protect the b pawn. Both sides lifting their h pawn in order to create some lift for the king. Long term improving their position. It's a pretty slow game. It's a structure that is known like as a hedgehog here, and black is breaking on d5. That's usually what you want as black because you liberate your pieces. On the other hand, white's position is perfectly safe. Bishop d6 trying to put pressure, or bishop d4 trying to put pressure there. The white pieces are very central. Opperwezen's position is solid. White is going all in potentially here, shifting the rook to g4. That's going to be vulnerable. Knight e5, the exchange of that dark square bishop means that there's no longer pressure, and the question is, how can white bring that piece back into the game? We see rook check and queen e1. We see black is trying to use his initiative. I really like black's position. Alireza is going to have to trick Opperwezen. He goes rook here, offering this endgame, but you see it is a little bit better for black. Bishop takes b5.
Bishop b5 is in the air.
Is in the air. Here, king g1, rook a4. Now no more bishop takes b5, and king g7 in order to allow bishop takes b4. And we see this position. Opperwezen is simply outplaying Alireza Firouzja in this position. He transfers the rook over. He wants to make the most of these pawns. How will he do it? Maybe bishop c3, b4. One of the things that you have to be careful about. Oh, nice trick from... Really, really nice trick from Alireza. He grabs this pawn on f7. Rook f2, however, will recover the pawn on f3, rendering material equal on the king side once again. But again, these pawns are problematic for white. White is going after them though. He grabs one of them, but the b pawn is rolling. He grabs another pawn on h6. I think Alireza is outplaying
7 seconds each.
Time is going to be the decision. And here Alireza does have the time edge. He drops his piece. Opperwezen is collapsing towards the end. Alireza has the time as well. I think we're going to see an Alireza victory from the jaws of defeat. So wow, incredible resilience from Alireza, and he takes the lead in the match.
What a game.
It looked at some point like, you know, it would be 1.5 at least to Opperwezen, but we see Alireza showing one of the things, his grittiness, one of the many incredible traits of his play style.
Absolutely. What a game.
We're seeing yet another Sicilian, but something really interesting has happened here. e5, the knight had nowhere to go. Black's king is in a lot of trouble, but on the other hand, we see that he is up a piece. Queen b5, he's inviting a queen exchange. We're probably not going to see that because you want to keep the attack going. Queen e3, the knight on f6, defending the pawn on h7, which is being eyed up, the knight being eyed up. So we're definitely seeing a lot of vulnerability in the position. One saving grace for white is this knight on a2. Will white take time to reroute it? Well, the bishop took, no longer guarding the b pawn, and the opportunistic Opperwezen gets in there. King g8 trying to bring the king to safety. Rook goes back to h5. Queen c6 creating threats against c2. Queen goes back to d6, coordinating. We see a lot of pawns, 4 pawns for the piece for white. So I think objectively speaking, white is at least equal and has the somewhat easier play. But look at Alireza. He's swapping towards the endgame. Knight b4, however, fork, creating problems, grabbing another pawn, rook check. Doesn't seem to do much. Bishop d7, I'm not quite sure that I understand the benefits of that move. Going after the b pawn, you can give a check. Alireza suggests that he actually wants more. He wants to press this position. He does have a couple of seconds on the clock, but will that be enough? The pawn on f3 hangs, however, and now the pawn on g4 also hangs. This position is still perfectly okay for white, for opperwezen with the 3 pawns. I think objectively it should be around equal. But the question is, and there we go. And there we go. Bishop takes b2 will equalize. The pawn on b4 falls in the end. Again, incredible play from Alireza to hold that very tricky position.
Those games are crazy, Alex. I'm struggling to.
Oh no! I thought that the queen was hanging for a second, but it was just the slight lag of this screen. Or maybe the lag of my own eyes, frankly. Maybe the screen was fine. So, yeah, incredible level so far. These two players, we're seeing a lot of aggression. But so far on the board, opperwezen has really shown that he can compete.
So Alireza up 2-1 in a close match so far. This one, Opper's got a huge time advantage out of the opening.
Yeah, opperwezen, I mean, he is one of the fastest players on the side as well. And we see, I think, a little opportunity there to win a piece, but it all happened so fast. They're actually heading towards an endgame where, once again, opperwezen has a very smooth position. White has an extra pawn on the queen side, but on the other hand, black has the pawn on the king side. What would I prefer personally? I would slightly prefer to be the side with the pawn on the queen side, because sometimes that pawn can really annoy the opponent. But big question.
Bishop has been trapped, so that bishop's not going to come back into the game anytime soon. But can black take advantage of it?
Well, the bishop can get now even to f8. I'm a little bit surprised, I have to say, that this was allowed.
I think it was missed, probably.
Yeah, perhaps that's the case. And now opperwezen is in serious trouble. We see that queenside pawn that we were talking about being a problem. b7 and bishop d6 is a huge crushing threat.
This was a big miss. It felt like opperwezen was in control, but Alireza incredibly resourceful, and he takes a 3-1 lead. So let's see what's going on here.
Well, it seems like it was a very, very fast opening variation, which gives black 3 minor pieces. I think they're both in theory. We're just going to both sit here and pretend that we know what's going on, that we know the theory. I guess that both players have played this variation before, but it has to be said, I don't like it for white. This is a lot of pieces, and another exchange fell, and that means that black now has a big material advantage. Cutting up the pawn structure, cutting up the king, rook f2, and we see, actually, to be honest, I would not be surprised with a quick resignation here from opperwezen. Alireza is really starting to crank up the heat. We're seeing bishop d5, bishop on g2, rook on c6, everything is dropping, it's a collapse, and there comes the resignation. 4-1-2. Alireza.
It goes so quickly. Once they crank up the heat.
Yeah.
When Alireza, when he gets in the swing of things, he's such an incredible beast.
I really believe that Alireza over the coming 5, 6, 10 years is going to be the dominant force, at least in bullet, and I would also say in blitz. He's already been able to beat Magnus on high tournament events in blitz and in bullet. And the scary thing is he's 17 years old, so still a lot of room for improvement. And if his reflexes and his tactical vision, if those things continue to get better, along with better understanding, then, if I'm scared now, I don't know. I mean, it's incredible. It's simply incredible.
And by the way, so Alireza currently in a good position to qualify here. There is one last quarterfinal that will be Naroditsky versus Tahir, but I think we are potentially headed. Potentially, we could see what I think many would hail as the dream semi-final. I should focus on this game, but Magnus Carlsen, Penguin, Alireza, and Naroditsky, who are 4 of, I think, the absolutely best bullet players in the world.
Yeah, and this position, opperwezen was, I think, in a lot of trouble, but he's mixed it up a lot here. King d2 to try and attack that pawn is not so easy to do. 94, he does go for this, but d2 is already a threat of mate, so he'd seen that check and being able to sort of drive that rook here. But as the sequence leads to black actually being up in exchange, and now I think he can exchange and go into a winning pawn endgame. The question is, can white somehow force this pawn off the board or create some kind of fortress here? And that's what we're seeing opperwezen trying to break. But look at Firouzja, he just doesn't allow it. There we go, b6. And the problem is now you can take the pawn, you can take on c6. The question is, can Alireza hold on enough to flag his opponent? Alireza, one of the fastest players on the planet. 1 second, under 1 second, it's 0.1 seconds. Opperwezen does not get there with the timeout. Huge game.
And one or two moves to game, but we see the speed, simply astonishing speed from Alireza. So 4.5, 1.5 now to Alireza, who's 2 points away from qualifying to the semis.
You have to feel for
Heartbreak for Hopper, yeah.
He's been so close on all these occasions. He's
Yeah.
a fan favorite amongst the Lee chess crowd that has seen him play for many, many years, although perhaps many will not have actually seen him before. So that's something I think that you know, it's nice for the curiosity of those who are Lee chess regulars. So it's nice to put a face to a name. And but Alireza so far just proving a little too strong. And in this game here, we see that Alireza's position is commanding. We see an exchange sacrifice, but these pawns are worth it. White tries to activate the knight, going via c5. That's a nice move actually, because you have to be careful. For example, if you did this, because of the x-ray, you're in trouble. And we see now Alireza trying to figure that out. f3, very nice as well, breaking down this structure. And this is suddenly some kind of a chance, but nice tricks from Alireza. And we don't see an exchange. Maybe we'll see it now. No exchange, knight d4 not possible because bishop takes d4. I'm surprised by this move, because once the opposite color bishops come onto the board, I think that's a very, very difficult position to win. The only question is, does Opperwezen want to try and press him on the clock? He does have a little bit of a time lead, but I think it's going to be...
he has to try at least.
He certainly has to try, but he doesn't do so. One of the things about Opperwezen, he's a very fair player. Maybe too fair in this particular instance. But on the other hand, can you really flag an opponent with like 16 seconds left?
Alireza, I mean, especially when we've seen his speed, probably I think Alireza would hold. Yeah, it was a repetition. I don't know if he could have tried to avoid it, is what we are saying. But anyway, a fair result based on the game. But yeah, we are saying he did not try, I think, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think his best chance was before he went into that opposite color bishop endgame.
The knight.
But, you know.
5-2 to Alireza. He's 1.5 game away, 1.5 point away. And his position, the black position, looks very dangerous.
Yeah, we're seeing actually Alireza picking up a pawn. He's got this very strong bishop against this dark squared king. That's a more effective piece than the counterpart, the light squared bishop. Knight is on e4. Great square. This pawn is going to be long term a problem. Bishop is planning to reroute to b2. Knight d6 and probably going to shift to c4. That's a great square for the knight. The bishop is now in a wonderful square. Mate is being threatened. This rook is in trouble. Knight g6 ideas are in the air. Knight f4 creating problems against all of the pieces. Black is just reacting. Knight f6 and knight takes g7. Both are threats because of the x-ray. Knight f6 missed by both players. I'm a little bit surprised. Knight f6 still possible. You would claim an exchange, and that's what Alireza does. He wins an exchange. He's totally in control here of this position. He's got all of the better pieces, more material, better pawn structure, all of the advantages that you're looking for, he's got them. So I think, and on top of that, he's got the clock time, 5 seconds. He's shown that in the final hurdle on the clock, he's a little bit faster, and I think he's going to convert. But we'll see what Opperwezen can do here. Yeah, and the problem is Opperwezen cannot actually create attacking chances against a very, very safe white king. And in the meantime, white is going to have checks. You see still moves that are trying to be defensive, and massive exchange under 1 second. And we
Alireza 6-2. He is now just one draw away from making it to the semi-finals.
Yeah, I mean, what can be said? Alireza is just a monster. It's hard for people who are not familiar with Opperwezen. It's hard to actually get across just how strong this guy is for somebody to win 6-2 against him. But wait a second, huge position here, because we do see white making some headway here. We've got one extra pawn for Opperwezen, and he is in command here so far. He's putting pressure against e6. Alireza needs to make sure to avoid a loss here in order to go through.
Absolutely. Just one more thing you were saying, you know, people might not realize, we didn't actually talk about this, but Opperwezen in the round of the last 16 beat Boris Grachev, I believe 6.5, 1.5 or something, an insane score against a grandmaster, the caliber.
Oh, very, very nasty trick there by Alireza. Knight f3, pretending to drop this bishop on d7, seeing more than Opperwezen. The check here, the intermezzo, there's no good way to block with the queen. Opper blocked with the rook. But once the queen dropped, he resigned. The point was you could not even take here. Rook takes. You cannot win that back. So it's not, I mean, you're losing pretty much a full queen here. And that is the end. Opperwezen, well, amazing tournament.
I think people, I mean, all these players, the problem is the score is 7-2, which seems like a severe score, but I think it just shows you, because the people who are regularly on Lichess, they know, Opperwezen is such an incredibly strong player, such a fast player, and for Alireza to beat them 7-2 is just incredible. I mean, Alireza is such a monster, and that was our third of 4.
Alireza has been described as devilishly tricky by none other than the world champion Magnus Carlsen himself. So if Magnus has so many problems, then what are us mortals going to do about it?